do is on this other holster, being the second one, right here, this piece is not, it's coming apart. Apparently they lost the buckle on it because this is not the correct buckle either. And then they threw in some whip stitches around there to kind of hold everything together. And those are failing now. So I recommended to my customer that we replace that, and I had this piece from the parts holster that we're going to put this on. And there's two ways to do this. This stitch line here at the very bottom goes right here, and that is part of this stitching all the way around the holster. Not quite sure how I want to handle that, if I just want to split it down to here. Somebody has restitched this holster, and they restitched over the top. And the only way I can tell that, and I don't think it'll show up on camera. Ugh, try that. You can see two rows of stitching there. So I may take it apart up to the mag pouch, because this is a good place to tie off. The rest of the stitching in the holster seems to be in pretty good shape, except on the lid, but that we already covered with my customer. We're going to restitch the lid. So I think the best way to do it would be to just split it from here all the way around, and then I can do the belt loops. This belt loop was repaired, and what they did is looks like they stitched another belt loop on the inside of it, and they took it off to do it because it was hand stitched, or it was machine stitched. So they reinforced it with another piece of leather in there and riveted it to the holster. So I'm going to pull this rivet out, and I might be able to make a plug for that hole. I have done some of these holsters where the thread was just in bad shape. And I think I have a video, I'll put a link up to it here, on one that I had to take completely apart. It was a beautiful holster. Unfortunately, all the stitching had rotted just on the back side. And you could see that. It was not there anymore. On the back side, it was gone. But on the front side, everything was intact. So it was kind of weird. The best thing to do in that kind of situation was to disassemble the whole holster and restitch everything. The strap was restitched on as well. Originally, there's some evidence here that the stitching crossed over, but what they did is they tied a knot here and they used super glue on it to keep it from coming apart. These knots, if you do these things correctly, they're not going to come apart. If I took this off, I'd be able to see under here, you know, between the layers, that there would be a knot, a mark from a knot there. I'm not going to do anything. The thread's in good shape, and it's all decent, so I'm not going to do anything with that. We're just going to leave that alone. So this holster has had work done to it. The tool pouch too. So I didn't even notice that yet. The tool pouch has been had a piece glued in there. That's interesting. And unfortunately, it's sticking out right here. I should do a check and see if this tool pouch will fit in there. And all my stitching is about the same size and everything. Let me see if we can replace that. It kind of looks like it'll work. I'll have to do a count. I will usually count my stitch holes before I try to do something like that, but only because this is not a very good repair and it's hard to see. Let's see if I can get another light on. So, planer. You can see here this piece of leather that's sticking out was part of that repair. Get my lighting right. Part of that repair. And I may just, if it'll work, if I do a count and count everything counts out okay, I might just replace that. These pouches are pretty easy to just whip in there right quick. It's good customer service to just repair little things like that as you can. Since I will have the lid off the holster, it's just real easy to do it. It's much faster. I can take this one out and do it. Bada bing, bada boom, whiz bang. Bob's your uncle. I don't know what they say anymore. And there's no crossover, and a lot of times these are done as two separate stitch lines, so that's fairly normal that I won't see a crossover anywhere. But there must have been a knot in here somewhere, and I'm just not seeing. Because it's back stitched. This one is back stitched just one time into here, and they probably snuck the needles out this way and tied a little knot. I'm not even in the camera there, and tied a knot under there, because that's the way I probably would have done it too. It's double stitched, or it's had a binding stitch on the end there, which I normally do that because that's the way they are. So that had to be how they did it. It's just there is not evidence of it except for the back stitch. I think we talked before, there's 2 rows of thread here, and I don't know why they would have done that aside from the fact that somebody restitched all this. And that happens. We know it does. It's how I get some of my work. Somebody screwed something up or did something wrong. But that's what they did. This is double stitched all the way up. Now I have to take this little bit of stitching out, and being that there's 2 rows of stitching here, one row I can pull back a little ways, tie it off, and we're good if the thread is in good shape. This is 2 rows. I'm not going to be able to do that. It's just not going to happen. And I was looking here, and I don't know how well that'll show up in the camera, but I think this might have been one of those holsters, at least that magazine pouch, that was brown and dyed black. That was something that was done back in the day, and it might have been done with just boot polish, because there is boot polish all in this thread. So there's a couple of different ways I can address this. I can just take all this stitching out from right here all the way around. This is a good spot because it's inside, it's just this little bit on the outside. Other than that, it's inside the holster or inside the magazine pouch, so it's really hidden, I guess. Yeah, it's hidden. But I think that's my best bet. That will also give me better access to put the belt loops on. I think we discussed this tool pouch, being that it's not a very good repair that was done on it. So, and there was one on the parts holster that I could take off, and I think I'm going to use that, and hopefully the holes will all line up and we can get everything to work all fantabulous. That's my hope. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is deal with the tool pouch, and then we'll deal with the rest of it, because I'm still thinking it over. I still think the best way to go is just going to be to take all the stitching around the side here off. Then I can just access everything better, and I don't have anything to worry about then. That's what I'm thinking. So, since I've got this holster opened up, I thought I'd show you this little tool. And it ain't much of a tool, but it works great. It's the needle is just a broken off needle from my Singer, and I use it to clean out the holes. These are tough to get to on the inside, but I can push through, and I can show you this tool, what it does, just because I have this holster opened up. These holes here were stitched twice. They had 2 threads going through it just like the body did. Now you have to watch this one. This is that belt loop that's next to the mag pouch, because these holes here, usually 1 or 2 of them, hold the strap in, the pull-up strap. So you got to be a little careful. You don't want to lose that strap. Finding those holes again, since they, I'll show you in a minute here, go through, they're between 2 pieces of leather. Now the leather wrapped around this needle like that just allows me to be able to push on it and not jam a needle into my hand. So on the inside, let's see if we can get that so you can see it down here. You can see how it pushed all that thread through. These are just slits in the leather, and your stitches hide behind that, and that's to protect those stitches for the belt loop. Sometimes you can get in here and just go right down that slit with a pick or something and pull some of it out. You want to get it all out as much as humanly possible, because it's just easier to continue and restitch everything once it's all out. Okay, got it. Yep, didn't get anything that time across. So I've got all of them cleaned out. There was a spot here where there was a rivet. I don't know, right here, there was a rivet through that held that one bottom of that one loop, or excuse me, top of that one loop on. So it made a hole here, and I don't think it's going to cause any problem. I am going to do a really good cleaning here. And how well this shows up, I don't know. But right here is the pull-up strap, and it slips. It goes over the leather here and then goes into the slot here. So it's usually only 1 stitch on the top and bottom that hold it. See that? There. They're really tricky to get these in here and you don't have the side open. It's tricky, but I can do it. I made a little tool that kind of pulls up in there. It's just basically a hook that hooks down in there, and you hook it into the leather and you can pull it up that way. But it's tricky to get them in there. The knot on the end is kind of tricky to make. But yeah, I'm about ready to give it a good cleaning and then start reassembly. So there we go. I did get the tool pouch in. I'll have to color that thread a little bit later. The pouch itself had 1 extra hole, so I kind of had to fudge a little along the way. It looks good on the outside. You can see a little bit where I had to make a couple of little fudge spots, but you can't really tell. Whatever was wrong with that pouch is affecting this leather too, so I'm going to go over it again and again and again to get it as clean as I can, because the one stitch pulled through. Not much you can do about it, but that leather is degrading, I guess you'd say. It was looking really good on the inside, and I cleaned everything up as best I could. So it's time to start putting loops on. The holes aren't going to line up perfect as I'd like, but in the case of the top up here, I can't really do that either. So we're just going to have to make it work, is all I can say. I got my needles are all threaded, and we're ready to get going. I'm going to do my crossover between the belt loop and the holster. Yeah, that's the best way to do it. So I'm going to start on this bottom row. Oops, we're starting the right spot. And since I can open the holster up, it's going to be a lot easier to work on. I had too much stuff. I need a bigger bench. I'm probably going to be moving back over to my old bench. This was never really intended to be a workbench, more of a tooling bench. So here I'm going to cross over. I'm going to go through the belt loop and come out between the two layers here. And I'm going to do the same from the inside. I'm going to come from the inside between the two layers. Well, the one that came from the inside is going to go back to the inside on the next row up. Let me get that. So you can hopefully see how I did that. And this one is going to come up through the belt loop. So you can see here, try to get that better for you there. You can see a little bit of the white thread right where I tied my knot back here. Otherwise the rest of it's pretty concealed in there. And that's really all there is to it. So I'm going to go ahead, stitch the bottom on. That's a little longer stitch line. And that is going to cover the pull-up strap as well. So I'm going to get that done. I don't know if I've ever showed doing belt loops or not, but they're pretty simple. You start one hole in, you go over for a binding stitch, you stitch across, get that binding stitch, pull it back, and then I tuck between the belt loop and the holster, and I'll run both threads through there and come up. I'll show you when I get there. How's that sound? Alright, so I'm here, and I'm going to go through the belt loop and out between the two layers here. So hopefully you can see what my needle's coming out there. I need to do the same thing from the inside here. So I'm going to pull them pretty snug here. This is the one that came through from the top. We're going to go back through the loop there. This one is going to go in the second hole here, down in the bottom. And this way my threads are crossed over underneath, and I'm able to do this in one continuous stitch. So now here, I'm just going to go through with this one, and I'm going to tie it off. Actually, I'm going to make 2 back stitches because I just feel a little better about that. So I'm just going to use a square knot. So I'm going to take the left thread over the right, run it through just like a regular overhand knot. And now this time I'm going to take the right one over the left and go through. I can just cut those pretty close. And I'm just going to use my awl here to tuck these threads in. The next thing that we're going to do is, this was the piece that I salvaged from the other holster. And I have to duplicate it, but it has to be about 1/4 of an inch longer. Unfortunately, it's not long enough. I was really hoping that it was, because it would have to be right about here, and it comes up too short to make it down here. So we're going to have to make a new one. I'll show you how I do that. Alright, so I'm laying out this piece, the piece that holds the buckle, and I'm laying it out on a new strap here. I did have some that I dyed last night and realized it's too thick. It's quite a bit, quite a little bit, I should have measured it. It's quite a little bit thicker than the original here. So I went with something a little thinner. This is the original actually, because it seemed to match up a little better. If I don't like it, I go back to this. And I took a piece of just a little bit of Ted's tape to hold it down, because I'm going to use this to also punch in my stitch holes. So what I want to do is try to punch these holes. They look fairly even here except for this one, and down here they go off at an angle. So that's going to be interesting. That should be the way that goes. Yeah. So they go off at an angle. Make sure I'm even on my new strap here. Now I could lay it on there and just punch the holes with an awl, but since I have such a nice piece here to go with, come on. This one's just a little longer stretch here. And this is why you need to have single prong punches. Not that you always need them, but it's good to have when you do need it. I should have those made. And we can just peel these pieces off and know that we've got our holes punched in the right spots. And this tape, of course, we want to get that off. Most of the time you can just kind of roll it. If you're using this tape on a surface that you need to dye, it will leave a residue. Well, there we go. I have my marks for where I need to cut that slot. And that slot is a little bit bigger than this tongue would be. There's a 1/8 inch. 1/8 inch might be a little big. Just a little. So let me see if I can find my metric punches. These are just, this is a set of Odin metric punches that I had mostly gotten for the 1 and 1.5 millimeter. Let's see. Four millimeter looks a little bit big. 3 millimeter it is. I'm just going to center this at my mark. So it's like the oldest trick in the leatherworking catalog. Punch 2 round holes and you cut to each one. That should open you up. I will use a straight edge. And you never want to cut all the way to the, from one hole to the other. I try to cut a little better than halfway, and then I'll finish it that way it does not cut into the good part that you don't want cut. And you just pop it out. Doink! You might have to trim a little. We'll see how far we need to skive, how far up we need to go. Take my pen here. Get a line across there. Both sides are skived. Just this side is only skived like the last 3/4 of an inch down there. And I'm sure that's because that little bit has to flip almost 90 degrees to get these holes into that side welt. So grab. I just seem to be able to do better with my safety skiver than I can with other tools. And I'll probably have to trim these edges once I get this installed. But I'm liking what I got. Go ahead and stick our buckle in there just to make sure everything's going to work right. So there's what it's looking like. Buckle is, it'll have to break in a little bit of course because that's just the way it works. But there we go. That is what we need, exactly. So I'm going to get it dyed. This holster's had a lot of work done in the past, and what I'm trying to do in an effort to correct the problems that it had, I'm going a little farther and correcting some of the issues that were created by the last person that did a not very authentic repair. And that's all how I'm going to say that. I want to be polite. I don't know who did any work on this holster before. It's the way this holster was originally. It crossed over at the bottom. I can see clear evidence of the crossover here. And then this bottom part was stitched in when they did the outside. That's how they were done. So I need to start by putting my buckle on, because if I forget that, I'm going to be pretty mad at myself. Make sure I've got that so it's going the right way. Double and triple check everything when you're doing something like this, because man, it sucks if you get it wrong. Don't ask me how I know that, because I'm going to lie to you. So I've got 3 done. We'll keep going. I'm probably not going to show all of this just because it is so difficult. I'll hang on to this little piece because it'll make another short needle when I need it. There you go. It's stitched on for what it's worth. Now I got to measure off what I need for thread here and go ahead and start getting after that in a big way. I'm not sure if I ever talked about restitching something like this. So I started at the hole. I took the threads out from this hole all the way around. I'm going back one more hole when I start this new thread, just to kind of lock everything in. I've pulled my needles through, and we'll just go to that next hole. You don't have to be all that concerned about getting your angle on your stitch right, because there's already kind of a divot, a groove from where the original thread was. So it's going to kind of just naturally fall into that spot again, which is kind of cool because it helps out a lot. There we go. I'll stitch back up. All I gotta do is dye my thread a little. Yeah, get the top back on. That's gonna be the fun part, because they're not that hard. Especially when you can take the whole thing off and just not have to repair just a little bit. It's nice that way. I'll be back when I'm ready to do that. Alright, quick recap. Made this piece. I still have to trim it up a little bit down on the bottom here. Not a big deal. We'll get that taken care of. Replaced the belt loops. These belt loops came off of another holster. And same with the tool pouch. I discovered that the tool pouch was pretty crusty. It was actually, the leather was disintegrating. I showed that earlier, I believe. And that leather was just coming apart. So, took this one out of the parts holster that I had here, that my customer so kindly sent along. So I didn't have to make one, because these things are kind of a pain in the butt. And they've got the button stud on them that I can't find anywhere. At some point I'm going to have to get a hold of a lathe and make my own, but there it is. So you want to make sure that you line up the body, this piece of the body, with the lid. There are definite marks in there. I don't know how well that'll show up where that lid was attached. So you want to make sure you line those up real good on both ends. I like to put these pins in there just to kind of hold things together while I'm stitching it. Your first stitch is always going to be a binding stitch, and it goes just off of this part being the body of the holster. There's one stitch on the lid that's outside of that. That's your first hole, is just before that. So out here I'm going to go in the second hole, and this should all go pretty well. All the holes line up and we don't have anything to worry about in that department. The tool pouch did not line up real perfect, but we got her done. Now we go in the second hole, or the first hole, and that will be our binding stitch. Now I'm gotta make sure that these lay right. So you don't want to pull them super tight just yet. Well, you don't ever want to pull them super tight on this old leather. You'll snug it up good. Get my threads to lay the way I want them, nice and side by side. There they are. I'll get used to this sooner or later. And we'll just pull it a little snug. I always start my stitch from the outside. Well, there it is. Got my threads colored, all stitched up. Looks wonderful. On the inside here, I don't ever treat that with Connolly's, but I do try to, clean it up good. All my stitch lines look nice. The thread color on everything is pretty consistent, so I like that. Actually looks pretty darn good. Alrighty folks, the 1936, or excuse me, this is the 1940 holster, is all done. Top's restitched. Remember, I found the tool pouch was falling apart on it, so I replaced that. We had a parts holster to work with. That worked out great. The belt loops also got replaced. One of the belt loops that was on here was okay. The other one had been butchered. When they restitched it, they screwed up some of the stitch lines inside the holster, and there was only so much I can do with that. But other than that, this one's in pretty good shape now. Again, we did this buckle piece. I think I showed how to make that. And that's it. There you go. Any comments you got, criticisms, maybe I need to do something a little different. Maybe you got a better way for me to do something. That's okay. Drop a comment down below. I always read them, always like to see them, see what you guys got to say. And that's it for this video. I know it's been a long one, but that's it. Stay safe. God bless. Subscribe if you're not already. And hit that like button. It only takes a split second to do it. And we'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.